We have no choice but to provide our young people with quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for every Ghanaian. It is the only way to ensure prosperity and to protect our democracy. We are not sparing any efforts to make education in Ghana of the best quality and fit for the needs of the 21st century.
The future of Ghana is in the hands of our children. And this future is built on education, because an educated, skilled, competitive, and competent citizenry is key to progress and development. Under President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the Ministry of Education is committed to building a Ghana that is ready for the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. From the nursery and kindergarten through primary school, junior and senior high school, and tertiary institutions, exciting reforms are taking place, and they are taking place fast. Ably led by the Minister of Education, Honourable Dr. Opoku Prempeh, the ministry is working through its 21 agencies to achieve the vision of providing Ghanaian youth with relevant education and skills to promote socioeconomic development. From free SHS to expansion of infrastructure, from reforms to policy direction, this is a story of a journey that started in January 2017, a story of hope, of progress, and of the future.
The MPP government came up with a lot of policies to reform educational sector in this country. Policies that were geared towards continuous improvement of the learning outcomes, because learning outcomes have been poor as measured by any standard. So educational policies evolve around all the different sectors of education: basic schools, secondary schools, tertiary institutions, the teacher training, and the TVET sector.
Basic education, increasing access and enrollment. Since coming into power in January 2017, the NPP administration has made access to education a priority, increasing enrollment from 1.7 million in 2016 to 1.8 million pupils in 2019 for kindergarten, from 4.3 million to 4.5 million for primary, and from 1.6 million to almost 1.7 million for junior high. Capitation Grant. In the first term of the Akufo-Addo MPP government, the capitation grant has increased by more than 100%.
As of 2017, the capitation grant that was paid per year per people in the basic school was 4 cedis 50 pesos. 4 cedis 50 pesos. In the first year, the ministry, we made proposals to the ministry, and the ministry and the minister worked to ensure that the proposal went through. And in the first year, we paid 9 cedis per student per year. And as we speak now, it has been raised to 10 cedis per student per year.
That means the pressure on basic schools has been eased, giving them funds to keep the schools running and the pupils in the classrooms. Curriculum reforms.
This is one of the opportunities that have been presented to this nation like none before, where almost all aspects of education has been tackled. Apart from looking at the various spans, early childhood, primary, junior high school, secondary, and to tertiary, we've also looked at various aspects of the education in terms of curriculum, in terms of instruction, and in terms of assessment. Prior to this, there have been some education reform initiatives in this country, but none has been comprehensive. There are times when we may reduce the span of education, whether eliminating middle school, bringing in junior high school, eliminating some number of years of secondary, reducing it from 7 to 3, and that sort. But we have not, as a nation, really focused on transforming every aspect of our education system, in fact, including even teacher preparation.
Preparing our youth for the new economy begins in the classroom. To this end, the curriculum for KG to Primary 6 was reviewed, moving from an objective-based curriculum to a standardized-based curriculum. And this was rolled out in September 2019. Emphasis has been placed on the acquisition of foundational reading, writing, arithmetic, and creative skills and core competencies, including creativity and innovation, critical thinking and problem solving, communication and collaboration, cultural identity and global citizenship, personal development and leadership, and digital literacy. For JHS 1 to SHS 1, the curriculum review saw the introduction of the Common Core Curriculum. The reforms are mostly complete, with rollout scheduled to begin from early 2021 when the 2020-21 academic year begins. The CCP is a carefully designed curriculum for learners as part of the learning experiences necessary to prepare them for higher education, the world of work, or both.
This government inherited a perennial problem where we had a lot of schools, over 12,000 schools that were collapsing at the basic school. When I say collapsing, I mean schools that perhaps were built with mud, schools that were being held under trees, schools that were being held under sheds, or very old schools that were actually collapsing. And one of the main things the minister wanted done was, first of all, the identification of all such schools, and then secondly, to put in a program to replace such schools. Of course, not all of the schools were going to be replaced. Some were going to be rehabilitated. We have tried to meet a need. We have tried to support a policy. Projects are not just implemented anywhere, everywhere, but where a structure is put up, it is put up because there are 100 children there who need to go to kindergarten. There are 100 children there who need to go to primary school. And it turns out that in that community, in that locality, perhaps the closest school is so many miles away. So these are the things that we had to do to ensure that projects were sited at the right places to ensure that it serves the necessary reason for which we put it up.
The government has made a big push into refurbishing and putting up new structures to facilitate learning at the basic level. Since 2017, a total of 719 projects have been initiated, with 250 of them completed and in use. These include 2-unit classroom blocks for kindergartens, 6-unit classroom blocks for primary, 3-unit classroom blocks for JHS, 9-unit classroom blocks for primary and JHS, and 18-unit classroom blocks for primary and JHS, as well as school washroom facilities in needy communities and furniture for classrooms, libraries, and teachers' common rooms. Ghana Accountability for Learning Outcomes Project, GALLOP. In order to help turn around performance in our public basic schools and provide equitable access to quality basic education to all children, the Ministry of Education developed an Education Strategic Plan, ESP 2018-2030, with quality, access, equity, sustainability, and relevance as its key priority areas. The World Bank has decided to step in to support this plan, and in collaboration with Ghana is to implement a 5-year project called the Ghana Accountability Learning Outcomes Project, or GALLOP.
Ghana Accountability for Learning Outcomes Program, a very unique opportunity for us to change and really improve our education system, and focusing on the basic schools. and there are about 10,000 schools participating. But what excites me more about Gallup is not just the improvement in the learning outcomes for the children, but the fact that the president also have taken a look at how to prepare teachers.
Gallup's objective is to improve the quality of education in low-performing basic education schools and strengthen education sector equity and accountability in Ghana. It is targeted at the 10,000 least performing basic schools from kindergarten to junior high and all special schools with direct interventions. Total project amount of $218 million is jointly funded by the World Bank Department for International Development and Global Partnerships for Education. Free SHS.
Before the advent of MPP, nearly 35% of students who qualified to enter secondary schools did not attend schools. So for every 100 students, 35 just didn't go, not because they didn't pass, but because they didn't have the financial wherewithal. For those 65 that went to school, 22%, nearly 18 of them, also fell along the wayside because they couldn't have the financial wherewithal to continue. For those who even completed for their examination, a huge percentage, nearly a third, from a quarter to a third, could not get their certificates because they couldn't fulfill their financial obligations to their schools. So there was a lot of talent wastage. So when His Excellency Dankwa Akufo-Addo came up with the free senior high school policy, the free senior high school policy enabled everybody who had passed the BEC, except those who failed in English or math or both English and math, to attend secondary school. The cutoff point had dramatically improved from 24 to 50-something to gain access, because we believed just by gaining access to secondary school, you are improving the human resource base of the country. You are bringing more skilled and more knowledgeable kids into the job market. The idea that people stopped at BEC when they were 15 and they were not qualified to work was an anomaly in the system.
In fulfilling a flagship campaign promise prior to the 2016 general elections, the Ministry of Education has facilitated the implementation of free SHS, covering 721 public senior high schools and technical vocational institutes. The removal of school fees and levies has cleared a major stumbling block to student enrollment, ensuring that nearly 50% more students over the period gained access to SHS education, where it would have previously ended at JHS. This relief on parents has benefited not just the pupils, but has improved their economic standing now that government has taken this load off their shoulders. The program has been a remarkable success.
We throw numbers around and we say that 1.2 million kids have benefited from the policy. But for me, I know these 1.2 million kids very personally, and every single one of them I believe I have a relationship with, because at some point they went through my placement system. And so whether they got their first choices, whether they got their second choices, whether they got their third choices, whether they had to do self-placement, some way, somehow, I believe I have a connection with them. And all these 1.2 million kids have different stories. There's some who come from the good homes, and there's some who come from the not so good homes. They're really brilliant kids who, without this policy, would not have had the opportunity of experiences secondary education.
From a figure of about 800,000 pupils in 2016, the figure has risen to over 1.2 million in the 2019-2020 academic year. In order to handle the improved enrollment figures, the government instituted the double-track system, allowing 2 sets of students for each year to report for lessons at different times of the academic year, while maximizing teaching and material resources.
We found that the free senior high school has been oversubscribed, not only because of second fees that we're paying, which children are being fed, uniforms, house clothes, technical and vocational equipment is being given, arts and crafts equipment is being given, laboratory equipment is being given to the schools to help prepare students, past questions, the chief examiner's report, revision notes for maths, all have been given. Academic interventions to support the teachers, to enable those who came with a lesser qualification also come up to speed. Everything had been given. to enable the children to have a peace of mind, to study and participate and become better citizens. That was the essence. So when you put up the policy, you have to look at the implications of the policy. Just by knowledge, we knew, when you look at the tenets of the free SHS, there was one that has to do with equity, there was one that has to do with access, both financial and physical. So we knew the second year of the implementation of the free SHS that the capacity that was available was 290,000 places, and potential kids that had qualified were 483,000, giving us a deficit of about 181,000 kids. Are we then going to say these kids who have passed and qualified could not go to school? No way. So that is where we came up with a measure, a stopgap measure called double track. And we implemented the double track by changing the school system, changing it for 3 terms in a year, where they stayed home for 5+ months a year in the 3 terms, to a 2-semester approach where they stayed home about 6 months, but increased the contact hours. So we moved the contact hours from 10:35 to 11:40 hours a week, gaining. And with that, we were able to more than increase intake by 40% over about the normal rate to ensure that more kids who had qualified gain access.
Under the equity policy introduced by this government, 30% of spaces in Category A senior high schools are reserved for children from public schools who tend to be from disadvantaged backgrounds. The result of this policy has been that students from public schools entering the Category A senior high schools has risen from 10% to 49% in just 3 years.
So with the equity policy, students who come from public schools have a better chance of getting into the top Category A schools. And so 30% of the vacancies in these schools are reserved for students who come from public schools, to also give them an opportunity. Remember in 2017, we had students coming from a school in the Brong-Ahafo region, as it was then, remote area, getting placement into Achimota school. And this was the first time anybody from the village was coming to the school. So the whole community rented a bus and then brought their royal, if I may say, to the school. And so we've had several instances of children who have come from deprived areas attending these Category A schools and excelling very well, because now they have a better opportunity to better themselves and to create a better future for themselves and for their families.
If you don't look at the education of girls, for example, and we are leaving them behind, this is a tragedy for this country. In 2016, the gross enrollment ratio, that is, if you look at the girls who are in school compared to girls within the population who were eligible to go to school, you were looking at about 43%. What does that mean? What it means is that 43 out of 100 of girls who were eligible were in school. Now you're talking about 60% within a period of 3 years. Another 3 years comes, we'll be talking about 80%. What it means is that all girls who are supposed to go to school are going to school, because in the villages like where I come from,
parents would prefer the boy child to go to secondary school and then have the girl child go later when they have more funds. But now they don't have to make that difficult decision anymore. So long as the child passes the BECE, they just pick their bags and they go in. And so funds that would hitherto have been used to pay the fees is now pumped into their businesses or whatever work they are doing, and so their lives are better. They don't have to decide between feeding themselves or paying their kids' school fees.
Prior to this government taking over the reins of education, about 6 out of every 10 girls eligible to be in school were not in school, mainly for socioeconomic reasons. However, in less than 4 years, this has been reversed, and the enrollment rate of girls has gone up to ensure that over 60% of girls are now in school. In order to relieve parents further, the following have been provided for students as well: WAEC-approved mathematics sets, WASI questions and answers, and chief examiners' reports, core mathematics revision books, and 1 hot meal to all day students. Senior high schools also enjoy free internet connectivity and 150 cedis per student per year in remedial interventions. Infrastructure. Through the GET Fund and World Bank, 28 community day senior high school projects inherited from the previous government have been completed. They have now been added to the 29 out of the 124 completed before January 2017. This has opened up further opportunity for students in these communities to have access to education.
As part of the double track agenda was to put up infrastructure for these 181,000 to go back to single track. That agenda will take about 5 to 7 years, and we are just probably in the second year of that agenda. And already we can see the tremendous amount of infrastructure that we've developed across the country to enable schools go back to single track.
It's also important to note that the projects are supported by various donors. We have projects that are supported by government directly through the GET Fund. We have some projects that are supported directly through government support through the Ministry of Finance. We have some projects that are supported by the Kuwaiti Fund. We have projects supported by the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa. We have projects supported by the World Bank. So we have all these category of support or funding that comes through to support infrastructure at this level.
In total, over 1,000 projects are at various stages of completion, from classroom blocks to dormitory blocks, washroom facilities, and rehabilitation works. Furniture has also been provided, including monodesks, bunk beds and mattresses, dining hall furniture, teachers' chairs and tables, as well as computer lab desks and more.
When you look at the cohort that goes to class 1, it's about 600,000. Even with the improvements that we only have 1.2 million. So when we want everybody to go, we have to create places for about 1.8 million in the 3-year cycle. So it means we have even more to develop, improve all the schools. Now we have the model schools coming up to improve it around the country so that the few good schools with facilities don't take over, which are oversubscribed. We want to put a model school at least in every district, starting from where President Akufo left off. And those model schools have become centers of attraction and excellence now. Put more of such that so that educational facilities will be spatially spread across the country and more kids can gain access.
One shining star among these projects is the first senior high school dedicated to creative arts that is being built in Kwadasu in the Ashanti region. This, in addition to 5 new model science senior high schools and 2 more being upgraded in the Central and Bono East regions, is opening up new opportunities for students of all backgrounds to be prepared for the future.
So at the secondary level, we have quite a number of infrastructure inputs at the various schools that are currently going on. And it's important to note that these structures are in twofold. We do have new structures that we put up from scratch, and we also do have structures that were started from the previous administration, but which are being completed under this new administration. This goes to support the fact that the government has not abandoned projects as we sometimes hear, but the government has actually taken it up to complete all projects that have been started. And the exercise that we have done as a ministry and as a unit is to assess school by school uncompleted projects and even go further to estimate the costs that will be needed to complete these structures, so that you may realize that a project that was started in 2014 that may have cost maybe 800,000. Obviously, such a project in 2020 would cost a little bit more than that. And government has taken all this into consideration and has repackaged most of these projects and re-awarded in some cases or amended existing contracts to enable the projects to be completed in support of its policy of improving access and quality in the respective schools. Government has put in measures to ensure that these projects that were started are completed. In regards to the 21 E blocks that have been completed, this government has completed 14, with another 2 to be completed by the end of the year. With regards to the projects being sponsored by the GET Fund, this government has completed an additional 14 to take the total number completed to 28. And like I said, with an additional 2 hopefully to be completed by the end of the year. So indeed, government does have a program and an arrangement and a plan to complete all these e-blocks that were started. But it's important to note that some of the e-blocks never started. It's important to know that some of them never started at all. And regards to other projects that were financed by the GET Fund, you take a look. If you go to some of the schools, you will notice that within the period of 2018 till date, a lot of uncompleted structures are being completed over the period.
In addition, contracts have been awarded to introduce boarding facilities in a number of the completed community day senior high schools, whose locations are a major barrier to daily commuting from the relevant communities. Strategic project financing initiatives, GET Fund securitization. In order to secure the push for infrastructural development, the GET Fund took a stringent approach to awarding contracts for projects. With a history of crippling debts that handicapped the work of the GET Fund, Cabinet in 2018 took the decision to approve securitization of GET Fund receivables to raise a loan facility of up to $1.5 billion. This was to finance new educational infrastructure, repay outstanding debts which had been pending for years, as well as complete projects that had been stagnated for years across Ghana. In addition, securitization made funds available to maintain and manage completed projects, keep projects on budget, as well as strengthening GET Fund's balance sheet in order to remain faithful to its core mandate.
Like I said, I first made mention of the loan facility, the loan facility that we initially took, which was approved by Parliament. It was supposed to be taken in 3 tranches. The first tranche, it's geared towards the expansion of infrastructure at the SHS. The second tranche is also targeted at the tertiary level. For the tertiary level, what we've done is the projects that are ongoing, we've written to all the heads of the tertiary institution to complete all their ongoing projects before new ones are started. So for the second tranche of the loan is also geared towards the expansion, massive expansion in the tertiary sector. For the tertiary sector, we've written to the heads of institutions that all ongoing projects should be completed. In the past, a head of an institution in the tertiary sector may decide to come and then do his own flagship project and then leave the project that a predecessor has started. This has led to a lot of projects being abandoned in the tertiary sector. So we had to be strict on that they should complete all ongoing projects before new ones are executed. After completion of the ongoing projects, we've spoken with the heads of institution that they should choose 2 of their projects that will increase student intake. So it can be a classroom block, a lecture theater, it can be a hostel facility, or it can be a lab, or anything that will increase the intake of students. And that is where majority of the second tranche will be given to them to do that massive expansion.
Being at Get Fund, I see a bright future for the students because at the secondary level, we're doing a massive infrastructure development. The second tranche is also for the tertiary, where there will be a lot of infrastructure development. The basic school are not also left out. The last part of the tranche is also for them. We'll be doing a lot, majority will be going to them. I see a future Ghana sitting here at Get Fund where students in terms of infrastructure development will be met.
After nearly 4 years of impact, the future is bright. Look out for the second part to see how the Ministry of Education under President Nana Akufo-Addo is laying the building blocks for the future of Ghana, for the further of Ghana.